cat. After action report, after action review. Preparedness Veteran and Costa have actually done some videos on this, and I will link them below.
A set of COVID after action review points. I thought I'd start a collective of information going, or lessons learned from around the prepper community.
Which I think is really important for us to be doing, and as PV always says, always train, keep training, always learning, always training, always keeping fit.
What I want to talk about in this video isn't my after action report, but actually what the difference is between after action report and a review, and why you should be doing it. And it isn't just, well, it's something cool and trendy that the military use, so we wear camo and carry our guns and we use military terms. The AAR has been used in civilian use extensively in emergency planning for years. There's basically two parts to it. The first part to it is the after action report. So the example I'm showing now is from the British Army in France in 1944 after D-Day. Basically it consists of 4 major points, which we will get into. It's been heavily used since it was pioneered over the years, and what it basically does is frontline soldiers or frontline first responders complete an after action report. These reports are then gathered and there's an after action review done. So in terms of prepping, the after action report is fairly straightforward. You need a little notebook, you need a pen, and you need to write stuff down. You need to have a plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. You need to say what went right, what went wrong, what went right that could have been done better. And then when you do this once or twice or 3 times or 4 times, you then go online and do an after action review where you discuss your report, and hopefully other preppers, other people will say, hey, I had a similar issue in this SHTF and this is how I dealt with it, or this is how I would deal with it in an SHTF situation. The idea being that you're getting feedback. Now the best feedback is the review, because you are biased. We're all biased and we have blind spots. So a review allows other people with different knowledge and different skills who weren't directly involved oftentimes in the SHTF to take a cold and hard look at it and make recommendations for next time. And that's probably the most important part of the after action review. If you record what's happening and do the report, if you review it afterwards and think about what you could do better, that's great. But what you really need to do is the corrective action plan. So I'm just going to put a few slides up and I'm going to talk you through this a bit, and it won't take too long. I'm not going to give you a specific example. You can have a look at my video on my after action review that I've done so far in response to the tag video, and you can see where I was focusing on. So that's the thing, when you do the report you're going to focus on specific things. Some people are going to focus on error, some people are going to focus on what went right. You really got to combine those two. Really have a good hard look. Currently there's a global temporary SHTF, hopefully temporary, and it is minor in nature in terms of death and mayhem, hopefully, and this is the ideal time to actually look at what you prepared for in terms of a pandemic, how it went, what functioned well, what functioned okay, what functioned poorly, what was missing. And then you need to look at that, and if you can, do a video or go on an online site and tell people what you did. Give them basically a narrative, a fun narrative of your report, and then get them to review it with you. And then you've got to do the corrective action plan. Now obviously in terms of an ongoing SHTF like the current pandemic, you may have a corrective action plan that says I need to get 500 rolls of toilet roll, or 1,000 pounds of flour, or I need to get 2 pounds of yeast. And you may not be able to buy that. You may not be able to get that. In which case, if the corrective action plan cannot be completed, once that loop is there and you give yourself a timeline, you then go back and say, okay, I can't get yeast, but I can get flour. How skilled am I at making unleavened bread? How easy is it for me to make unleavened bread? Do I have enough flour for that? So that's what you need to look at. Like if you're dependent on dairy, if you can't get eggs and milk, what can you use instead? You may have no idea, you may not know about veganism, you may not know about using chia seeds.
There's a new pet.
Chia.
Chia Pet, the pottery that grows. It's fun and easy. Soak your chia, spread the seeds, keep it watered, and watch it grow. And now grow a whole collection of fun with chia teddy bears, puppies, kittens, lambs, bulls. There's even a chia tree to keep your pets company. Chia Pets and Trees, the pottery that grows.
The Chia Pet and Chia Tree are available at Kmart, Rite Aid, Ames, and Woolworth. Makes a great gift.
And etc., etc. So this would be the time that you might want to think, hey, part of my corrective action plan is I need to get a really decent vegan cookbook, go and buy some vegan stuff and practice with it and store it. I'll die before I don't eat meat and dairy and cheese, but if it comes to it, you don't want to die, and there is actual simple long-term storage solutions to most of the products that you might eat, whether you be a vegan or a carnivore. So this is from the Army. We must continue to look critically at our abilities to achieve decisive victory and aim to improve. I believe that one of the single most important innovations of the past 20 years, one of the keys to our edge today, is the after-action review. At all levels, the AAR provides us with an honest appraisal of our performance and directs our efforts to correct shortcomings. And that's the thing, it has to be really, really brutally honest. But what is it not? It's not a lecture. So my video is a lecture format. It's a discussion of minor events. No, it's major issues. It's not a discussion, it's factual. It's not a gripe session. I would have been fine except for you in my bug out group didn't do a good job. That's not the AAR. It's not intended to embarrass anybody. Well, people might be embarrassed if they have failed to perform very well, but that's up to them, isn't it? So when we actually look at it, why are we doing this? Now, I did allude to some of this. It's institutionalizing accountability for improvement. Now, you're not an institution, but your bug out group is a form of institution, but it actually formalizes the accountability for improvement on an individual level. It's hard to pretend that you did a good job when you've written it down, looked at it, and had people look at it and said, whoa, you should have had a different type of water filter. At least you can learn from that. It's learning by the actual experience. A lot of what we learn in SHTF passes us by. A week, 2 weeks, a month later, we've forgotten a lot of the key learnings. So this is why I recommend a notebook and a pen and jot stuff down. It's also a form of teaching by example if you actually transmit the review to other people, and of course YouTube's ideal for that. And it also signals expectations. Now this is important in two ways. For the individual, it signals expectations to you that you may not have enough money for a Berkey water filter, but if you save $5 a week for the next year, you can get one, so you start to save the money. You've got an expectation to do that. It also is an expectation for others. Say your wife kept going out to the bar and then got COVID-19, it would signal to her that in future pandemics you don't want her to do that. I made that up, Kitty's not heading to the bar. Now this is one of the interesting things about the whole process, and I want to talk about this. There's 4 major areas to the after-action review report, okay? What happened? So this is basically straightforward. You put it down, what happened, dates, timelines. If you assign people to specific jobs, you write that down. If you had specific weaknesses, you write them down, or strengths, and you knew that going into it, you write them down. What did you intend to happen? So for example, what happened? There was a sudden pandemic. What were the key assignments? Variable, nothing specific. I should have been well prepped and I wasn't, so I went and got X, Y, and Z. And what did you intend? I intend not to catch COVID-19 or anybody I know or love. What happened so far? None of us have. But it's ongoing. So what I learned about is a whole bunch of things in the video I did, the after action review tag I did, and that's in the description. And what should we do next time? And what we should do next time is very, very important, mainly because this is an ongoing event. So I am actually promoting, and so is Preparedness Veteran and Costa, they're promoting the idea that you actually do this on an ongoing basis when you have time to do it. So there's 5 questions you might want to do if you're doing the review. What was our mission? What went well? What could have gone better? What could we have done differently? Who needs to know? So that's a negative slant one. So what was the issue? What went well? What went okay? What went badly? What could have gone better? What could have gone worse? It's important. It's important to look at the strengths as well as weaknesses. What might we have done differently? Absolutely vital. And then what would have happened? Was there a cascading effect from the difference? For example, if you're having no water in your house, that's going to affect pretty much every aspect of your preps, and it might affect them adversely. Who needs to know? So this is for Army institutionalized areas, so obviously who needs to know? Nobody. But if you can share it online, that's a really nice thing to do. So when you've done all of this, what you have basically is hot wash, after action hours reporting, and the corrective action plan. The hot wash is a debrief basically, and it's done quickly, and it's held during or immediately after the exercise. The idea of this is it's actually in peacetime. So for you, what the hot wash would be is jotting stuff down, having a quick conversation, making a comment on YouTube as the event goes through, but you haven't really got time to look at it in detail. When you have time to sit down and look at the notes and think about it, you do your after action report. Chronological, exact timelines, discuss each capability and everything that happened with the capability. You don't have to do every capability, but it's a good idea. Highlight both your strengths and areas for improvement, and I agree with this. You've really got to highlight those strengths. Identify discussion points relevant to your site's ability to carry out the activities. Do you need help from other people? Do you have to network? Demonstrate the capabilities are being exercised. Well, that's important. So when you've done the report, one of the things with this is, the reason I'm saying look at the strengths as well as weaknesses is because we tend to play to our strengths. If you had well enough ammunition or well enough water filters, the chances are at some point in the future you will buy more of those. If you didn't quite have enough chia seeds to replace eggs, the chances are if you haven't highlighted it, you may not think to do so. We play to our strengths, not our weaknesses. That's a human trait that you need to use a formalized system to overcome. And this is the really vital part, the corrective action plan. So what are you going to do? Concrete timeline, in my opinion, actionable steps to improve the event if it occurs again, or if, like this event, it is ongoing. Absolutely vital that you look at this stuff. Absolutely vital that you take this stuff on board. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I do strongly promote those channels. There's a lot of great channels in prepping. I've been a little negative lately, mostly because I'm a registered nurse and it's really annoying me, all these bearded preppers who can't put an N95 on, and I'll get into that, because I want to talk about why we don't prep to our strengths, why we keep ourselves with one hand tied behind our back. It's really clear right now in the pandemic, some people are doing that and they're doing it deliberately, and they've rationalized it into various modes of thought that to them makes sense. But when you attack, criticize that mode of thought, like, why have you got a beard on? You've got N95s because you're a prepper, and they do. If somebody has a car crash outside your house, you're not going to be able to put an N95 on and help. Maybe you're not bothering to help people. I don't know. It strikes me that if an intruder comes into the house at 3 in the morning, if you have an N95 on the bedside and your Glock and a decent flashlight and an alarm and maybe a lock on the door, you'd be in a lot better state in a pandemic home invasion than in a normal home invasion if you can actually seal an N95 to your face at the time. It's basic, simple, doesn't mean that you have to wear an N95 all the time, but even if you're right in the middle of Nowhereville, you can still get people coming into your area, you can still get people trying to get into your house, you can still have to attend to accident. For example, your child might be hit on their bicycle on the lane outside your rural retreat, and you have to go and attend to that child, and there's people in that vehicle who probably, because people mostly are nice, will be trying to help the child. Child's been exposed. You've got no N95 that you can decently fit over your face mask. You have got no N95 that can fit over a beard, sealed. It won't seal properly. And you're going to be hyperventilating, very stressed, very close quarters, both now to a child and to the things. Now that's kind of not a nice, pleasant thing to think about. But there's a larger number of people out there that believe they're invincible. They believe if they get COVID, they'll be fine. There's massive evidence of that. Very much may not be true. And there's also massive evidence that shows that nobody's actually safe, no matter their age group, from not dying or having long-term effects from COVID-19 disease. So it's important now in the pandemic to do this after action hours reporting and then to do a decent review on it. Make sure there's no obvious glaring weaknesses in your response to a pandemic that's airborne droplet that you are neglecting, that you can fix. And if your correction action plan tells you to fix it, fix it. And if you can't, figure out how to alter it so you can address the issues. So remember, in SHTF, tomorrow will always be worse than today, unless you prep. And part of prepping is to criticize yourself very, very harshly. Okay? And to pat yourself on the head when you deserve it. Toodles. this is a Beautiful Marmalade Cat production, 2020.